Did you
All right.
literally just turn on your microphone, Kevin?
Yep.
So in the utility industry, when we get that from the call center, we call that operator error. I just thought you'd want to know that.
Agreed. Agreed. So we're here to talk about the energy transition and what's behind and what's to come. So we'll ask a couple questions around that. But before we do that, maybe the two of you can introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit how your experience lends yourself to knowing, being familiar with the energy transition.
Yeah, I'm David Wade, the CEO of EPB in Chattanooga, and we're a municipal, about 200,000 electric customers. I think the thing that transformed us was in 2009, we rolled out a community-wide fiber optic network, and today are the 70% market share of the fiber and have 25 gig available to our entire community, urban and rural, and just started a quantum network. So the getting into the communication space has really transformed our industry and our community, I think.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Austin. I'm Karl Popham, manager of electric vehicles and emerging technologies at Austin Energy. I apologize, those respecting our general manager, Jackie Sargent. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us today, but I'm going to be filling in. And I guess so specifically to Austin Energy, so we've been around since 1895 as an organization, and we think very long term. For me specifically, I one time got introduced as one of the co-founders of Austin Energy, and I realize I'm aging, but I felt like that was a stretch. But I have been with the utility a little over 17 years, and that entire 17 years has been with a focus on innovation and emerging technologies. First in the information technology space, and then the last 12 years or so of co-founding a team called Electric Vehicles and Emerging Technologies. So welcome to Austin. We're so glad to have you all here at ETS and look forward to the discussion.
Great. So I thought I would pay homage to Jason, and one of the questions I heard him ask earlier this week to kind of break the ice and let everyone get to know you all a little bit better. What makes you weird?
What makes you weird? Oh, I think what probably makes me weird is certainly love what we're doing and the impact we get to make on our community. One weird fact about me is that I have an alpaca farm.
Very cool. Very cool.
Weirdly enough, I also have an alpaca farm, and I just think that makes me weird too. Thank you.
Well, since I asked him such an unusual question, I figured I'll share a little myself. So for some reason, about 10 years ago, I decided it'd be a good idea to start collecting tattoos. So not something most people think lines up with my persona. But anyway.
Is there a demonstration of this later on, Kevin? Yeah. Is that at the reception?
At the reception, with a drink, I could be convinced to do things. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what the behind part. So what is the most significant innovation in the energy industry in the last 10 years, in your opinion?
I think that's a great question, Kevin, because there's so much innovation's happened in the last 10 years. I think just certainly I think about the digitization and merging of communications and information with the electric system has been transformational. I think perhaps maybe the ideal that what's been happening in electrification of transportation is really what may be the most impactful, just because it's adding new revenues to our industry that we get to choose whether we, and it's been said many times, how do we deal with it? Do we deal with it smart? Do we deal with it effectively? And it's also going to drive us to be more responsible to our customers. Resiliency means a lot today, but it's going to mean more when they wake up and their car doesn't operate. So it's going to drive us in so many ways, and the development of that technology pushes other technologies like storage innovations that are happening from the grid and other things. So I think perhaps the electrification is probably that innovation?
Well, since I have the word electric vehicles in my title, I'm going to double down with transportation electrification, so thank you, David, for that. But I kind of want to, put why that is. So 3 tenets at Austin Energy is clean, affordable, reliable energy. And I think EVs can really hit all those 3 in an extremely impactful way. One is clean. It's just EVs take significant amount of emissions, CO2 emissions, but EVs also don't have tailpipes, so you're getting rid of all those NOx and particulates. And it also really cuts down on noise pollution, just all kinds of pollutions in a city that EV just takes away. Here in Austin, with the Austin Climate Equity Plan, our goal for the community is to be 40% of all miles traveled in our community are on an electric platform. So we call that EVMT, electric vehicle miles traveled. So what that means with the utility, well, what that means for our community is much cleaner air, to include an 18% reduction in all emissions. I mean, the 2 big gorillas you have to address is transportation, and then electric generation, mostly for buildings. And then reliable is, a lot of reliability for the electric grid is around storage. Storage on wheels far, and the trajectory is going to be ubiquitous in your territory, whether you like it or not. So if your whole storage strategy is stationary storage, you're missing out on potentially over 90% of the storage in your territory. So we really think with smart programs and the different load profiles of EVs, we can really hit that. And I'm going to end on affordability, and perhaps that's the most impactful way. We spend a lot of money, policy, thought, and effort on making the electric bills more affordable. So here in Texas, the average electric bills, when you look over a 12-month period, is around $2,100 a year, $2,200 a year. If you're an Austin Energy customer, the average is $1,806. So your miles may vary, but around $2,000. The average Texan's transportation bill for a year is $10,000. So now utilities bringing that reliability, affordability mindset to transportation is attacking a much bigger part of that household checkbook pie by 5x. And for low-income residents, that can be 30% of their expenses in transportation. The only expense that's bigger is housing. So it really allows you to be affordable from a consumer perspective, how they're trying to save money, and not just focusing on that sliver of pie. And it's a significant sliver, but not nearly as big as the transportation expense for the home.
Very nice. So my next question is, how has your company's work and your work evolved over time? David?
Yeah, I think ours really changed when we started getting into the communications business, became an ISP, and started having real competition, because that made us start thinking differently. We had to start thinking about products and not rates. We had to start thinking about what our customer wants, not what they need. And it really transformed our whole organization from both a communication and an electric perspective. And one of the unusual ahas in there, and I think that we still haven't quite got our head around it as much as we need to, is the ideal that you have to start thinking about product life cycles in ways that we haven't as an energy utility. We've sold kilowatt hours forever, right? For 80 years we've been in existence, and we haven't had to take products away from customers because it's the end of a cycle when they still want a product. So it totally has changed us to be in that competitive space a lot.
And that fiber optic implementation, that was something you helped spearhead, I understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, excellent.
I'll share a story and how that story reflects on how things changed. So I joined Austin Energy about 17 and a half years ago, and I came from the private sector. I used to do consulting. And I remember my very first meetings, so I'm in and we're talking about an innovative project, and the word ratepayer kept coming up. Like, this is going to impact the ratepayer. And I asked the stupid question, being the new guy, well, what's a ratepayer? And they're like, well, they're the people that pay the bills. And I was like, so is that a customer? And there was actually an awkward pause, and yeah, I guess that is customer. And what I've seen and how it's evolved is we moved from ratepayer to customer satisfaction and JD Power scores, and that's very important, to now more on customer experience, and I'm continuing to see that evolving. So I would say the overall, how I see evolving is from the ecosystem, the center of our ecosystem universe, changing from the utility, being at the center, and then how we send out services and commodities, really commodities, how we send commodities to ratepayers and how people can conform, and if they want electricity, what forms they have to fill in and sign in, here's all the rates and tariffs and programs, to the customer being the center of our ecosystem. And how are we providing services and value add? And if even in our outreach and marketing traditionally used to be, here's all the terms we know as utility, KW, KWH, EVs is an industry term. And if you are interested in our programs, we're going to teach you our language and our forms, and you're gonna fill that out, and you're gonna learn that language, and that's what outreach looks like. Now I see our team completely looking, well, what is how do they speak? For example, if you look at the 10 most searched cars, when you look at EV isn't one of the top 10. It's cars, it's electric cars, it's Tesla. And so it is, well, let's just change our, let's just say cars. Let's just say electric cars. Let's learn their language and then have them be the center of our universe and how we learn their language and approach them with outreach and services, as well as the traditional commodity of KWH.
Yeah, the customer's really kind of heading towards prosumer and partner at this point. I think that's interesting. Great. Next question is, how has the resilience discussion evolved as the grid undergoes its transformation? So obviously there's going to be things like data, design, weather that come into play. David, do you mind going first?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. You know, I think certainly I think we all have seen the weather become more volatile than it seems like it has been in the last several years, and continues to be a greater challenge. And our customers demand more of us. I think they work from home. They can't afford to be without power. It's like a day out of work, and they become more dependent on the assets we provide. So I think the ideal of the demands of resiliency are just continuing to really grow. One of the things that we've started doing, and I guess it kind of is an example of resiliency, and we've started putting in some stationary storage in areas that we can couple with solar and use the automation we put in to have a dynamic microgrids for resiliency. But one particular story I'll mention is one that really resonated, because it said that competition is really already here for us. We bought a piece of property in an area that we had some fairly long radio, and it was one of the areas that we didn't have an ability to feed from a different direction if we had something happen upstream. And so wasn't a good place to do anything, but we could put a pretty good sized battery out there, and we could operate for a significant amount of time. So we bought a piece of property and went out there and started talking to our customers, and they said, we don't want it. And we said, well, why? And they said, oh, we don't need it. We've already put in Generacs. And, and what happened there was it solved the problem without us in a way that was good for them, that group of customers. The other group of customers upstream from that didn't have the funds to buy Generacs, it didn't solve their problem. So it really resonated with me how us being quick to the game is really important as we start going down this path of developing resiliency, because our customers will solve the problem, the ones that can afford to, and leave it for those that can't.
I would say one is I want to make the distinction between reliability and resiliency. To me, reliability is the outage in the first place, and resiliency is how quickly you snap back. And a lot of times I hear those words interchanged. And I would say, so, how it's changed since I've been at the utility 17 years ago, It was primarily discussion among utility folks. So we did have a grid modernization effort called Smart Grid 1.0 and Smart Grid 2.0, and it had smart meters. The word smart was compounded so many times, it kind of made your eyes roll when a solution provider come in and they had the latest smart thing for you. But I went on a tangent. But now we see that discussion as a core part of everyone's discussion. We've had major, major storms here. Anyone heard about a storm or two coming through Texas? Texas grid, is that a rumor? I heard rumors about that. And so now it's really topical. There is a lot more interest. And what we've seen is, so one is, it's to your point, David, is working with customers on resiliency solutions for them. So a lot of that from utility talk is distributed energy resources, so resources that generate much closer to the place of use. EVs are part of that. We've launched resiliency as a service as part of a new state law for grocery stores. And it's really, and one size does not fit all. So it's really about a proactive engagement with the customer and also understanding. Also cleaning up some processes as well. What does a critical circuit look like versus not, and making sure you have the right inventory. So a storm we had a while back, Storm Uri, we made our after action report, had 19 observations and 126 recommendations for that. And Storm Uri was different than the most recent storm. Storm Uri was about generation, and the most recent was about distribution lines. Soaked oak and cedar trees, and then they get ice, and then they wipe out your distribution network. Where Uri was about generation and gas to generation and those. So those are two different issues. But I'll just end on this, is if I hear one more time, this is a once in 100-year event, it's a once in a 500-year event, I'm gonna lose it. That is just an excuse to say the implication is, it's not going to happen again for another 100 years. No, it isn't. So the design mentality, designing with the mentality of this only happens 100 years or 105, it really needs to go. This is the new normal. And I think people realize that's new normal. Maybe it's fake news, but climate change is real. And I think we organizationally as engineers need to plan on where climate is today and into the future, and not where it was in a 100-year event and 500-year events.
Great answer, thank you. So given all that, how will the role of the utility change going into the future?
David, I keep looking. By the way, I told Kevin, make sure you ask David all the questions first, so that will give me a second to think about it and change my answer.
He bribed me a little bit.
And that's a true story. I'm not making that up in the fun. I actually told Kevin that. That is a true story.
I think we're becoming a marketing and technology companies. It is what I think is changing or so, is because, we're becoming technology companies, and a company that's got to figure out how do we deliver products that our customers want that deliver value to them. And I think those are quite different from the traditional utility of bringing a wire that's big enough to support the maximum load on it at any point in time. And so I think that's what I would think is the major changes we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, I often hear our industry compared to communication companies and mobile phones, and how it had to evolve from per minutes. And remember, per minutes was such a big thing. Remember that? And then they started saying, oh, you know what customers want? Rollover minutes. And then if the minutes roll, but it was really bogged down into that commodity thinking. Who still has a per minute plan on their phone today? Anyone? No, because the customers moved on, and they're kind of moving on with their energy needs as well. Now we're playing catch up, and to the point is thinking in terms as a service organization versus a commodity provider. Those are two different strategies and how to think about things moving forward. Putting the customer first in your ecosystem. One thing that I learned early on in my consulting career, I consulted for a pretty well-known insurance company called USAA. I had also been a customer of theirs for years, and they always hit the top list of most admired and highest customer satisfaction, and that was always, you always wanted to get this USAA customer status. And so on the site, consulting with them for about a year and a half, I kind of learned how they did it, and it's quite simple, and I'm going to share it all with you. It took me a year and a half to figure it out. I'm going to share it with you in 30 seconds. There wasn't a single meeting that I sat in a year and a half of being a consultant at USAA where someone didn't ask, how does this affect the customer? It was just part of their DNA. You could not leave a meeting, and you as a consultant, you're deploying, you knew you had to have the answer for that in your back pocket. How does this? So it's about that cultural thinking and reiterating how this affects the customer. And I think that's really just a monumental shift of moving in as a service industry and catching up with telco and maybe other commodities and learning from that and how we can do it better as an industry.
Great. What are the processes that are key to improve and optimize moving forward? And we can make Karl answer first. So
all right, man, you know what? I try to be transparent here, Kevin. I try to be honest with the audience and transparent. So one is, I've always had the foundational value that good processes promotes the business and outcomes. It doesn't hinder it. Who here has dealt with a process that you felt like it was hindering the outcome or greatly hindering the schedule? Anyone run into in their lives maybe a process that just seemed kind of weird? Whenever I hear, and so here's my advice, and here's my advice I share with my team. I mean, when you set up the process, every process should be about enabling your outcome. But two is, as you're going through, it's okay to try to understand the intent of the processes. And if you ever hear the term, that's how we've always done it, that is a great opportunity to really look at that process and does it really make sense? Because I feel like we have a legacy. Did I mention we were founded in 1895? My heart tells me we still have some legacy processes from 1895 still within our organization. It's definitely within our DNA. So I would say challenge it, look at streamlining and opportunities. Anything that is manual intensive, if I see anyone doing a process through a spreadsheet, that is also what I call a flag. And just to be really, really conscious of process should promote the outcome. It shouldn't be another hoop you make staff jump through.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll add one thing I think, though, is our processes are going to have to continue to be more agile, that our customers are expecting us to move quickly. They're expecting us to be able to tell them stuff. They're expecting information at a push of a button or just at a look of an app. And so I think that we've got to be very aware of anything that hinders our ability to be agile and quick to market on new products and services.
Well, we got about 5 minutes left, and I know that we're kind of here between everyone here and the cocktail reception. So maybe we'll open it up to questions.
Kevin, you just created a contract with the audience. Whoever asks a question is making everyone else not be able to get a drink.
I didn't think that through.
That's what we call peer pressure to the audience. Well done. I'm okay. We could go straight to exception. And for the tattoo exhibition, I heard, is now on the agenda.
Dang it. So while we're waiting, I do have one more question that, while people are thinking. What keeps you guys up at night?
Well, one is I'm retiring from Austin Energy City on Friday, so I'm sleeping really good. I get a solid 8, even 9, to include today. I don't know if you noticed, I didn't show up till 11, 12 today. That's the start of my day now, so I'm okay with it. But I would say how you survive 17 years and not being up at night is you just hire fantastic people and you just kind of get out of their way and you will not lose a wink in your life. With that said, could I have the Austin Energy people stand up real quick here? Now that I'm pandering to you. Oh, look at that. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, look at front row. Front row. But I do mean it. Good people is the foundation and heart of anything, any level of success in any organization. I don't care what it is. And it will definitely help you sleep at night knowing you have the good people out doing the real work.
Yeah. Well said. It always does go back to the people. That's no doubt about that. I think that's the case. I think the thing that keeps me up at night, because I think I know that the things that are happening today that we've got taken care of, and that there's people that are taking care of that is, what are we missing something for 5 years out that we should be doing? I think that's the thing that keeps me up, probably myself, is thinking about what we're missing.
Sure. Good answer. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think with that, we're all complete.